My name is Ryan Colburn, and what I'm about to share with you is not a story I tell lightly. I've told it in parts before, casually over drinks, usually laughed off, but never the full truth. Never all of it. Until now. I was 27 when it began. I just inherited a house from an uncle I barely remembered. His name was Leonard. Leonard Holloway. A recluse. From what little I knew, my mother's estranged brother. No one had seen him in years. I never even attended his funeral. The house came with a short letter and a legal deed from an estate attorney in upstate New York. The house stood on Cradle Hill Road, just outside the small town of Rentsfield. A place you probably haven't heard of, and that's how the locals like it. Quiet, old, with the kind of fog that rolls in like spilled milk and hangs around for hours. I didn't need the house. I lived in a city apartment, but something about it called to me. Maybe it was the idea of space, a place to write, or maybe it was something deeper, something I couldn't explain then and can barely understand now. All I know is I moved in. The first time I noticed the chimney shaft, I thought it was just an architectural curiosity. The house had been built in the 1890s, 2 stories tall, with a stone chimney running up the side of it like a skeletal spine. Inside, the fireplace sat sealed off with bricks and iron and used for decades. The shaft ran straight through the center of the house, cutting vertically from the living room to the attic. I remember standing under the open vent in the living room ceiling, craning my neck, staring up into that black, narrow hole. It was unusually large, wider than a typical flue, yet too narrow for anyone to ever climb into. I figured it had been expanded or altered at some point. Still, it unnerved me how cold the air coming from it was. Even in the middle of July, I could feel a faint draft like breath on my neck. The attorney had mentioned nothing about structural issues. No mention of repairs or haunting rumors. Just that I now own the place outright. No mortgage. No back taxes. Just a house and everything inside it, including whatever waited in that chimney shaft. The first noise came 3 days after I moved in. It was around 2:30 in the morning. I'd been dozing on the couch with a stack of old books from the study when I heard it. Scritch. 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 It sounded like nails on brick, coming from inside the wall. I sat up, fully awake, heart stammering. The sound came again. Then silence. Then a thump. I stood, walked over to the fireplace, and listened. Nothing. Maybe squirrels, I told myself. Or a raccoon nesting up top. But when I climbed outside and looked up the chimney the next day, there were no nests. No debris. Not even soot. Just a gaping black hole. And cold. Always cold. I tried to forget it. But the noise came again the next night. Scritch. Scritch. Thump. Like someone dragging long fingers down the inside of the shaft. Curiosity turned into obsession. I started looking into Leonard Holloway's past, digging through local records and asking around town. Most people were hesitant to speak about him. Leonard, said one old man at the gas station. He was odd. Didn't come into town much. They say he boarded up that house himself. After the fire. Fire. He just shook his head and walked away. The Rentsfield County Library gave me more. A newspaper clipping from 1984. Local girl missing. Last seen near Cradle Hill. Her name was Madeline Pierce. 10 years old. Disappeared while playing near the woods behind my new house. 2 years later, another article. Local man suffers burn injuries in chimney fire. It was Leonard. There were no photos. Just a short paragraph stating he'd been treated for burns to his arms and hands. No cause determined. The fire marshal claimed there had been no active flame in the house, no source of ignition. They never found Madeline, and Leonard never left the house again after that. It wasn't until the 6th night that I saw them. I was walking past the fireplace to head upstairs when I heard a creak, a low, groaning sound from within the walls. I stopped, and then I saw it. Fingers. Thin, pale fingers curled just inside the chimney shaft, visible through the iron grate. They were trembling, as if shivering. I froze, unsure if I was hallucinating. My breath hitched. I watched the fingers twitch, curl, and slowly withdraw upward, vanishing into the darkness of the shaft like a spider retreating into its burrow. I didn't sleep that night. I began hearing whispers. They came only at night, and only from the fireplace. Most were indistinct, like breath between syllables, but sometimes I could make out words. Cold, not safe, don't, look up. I set up a small recording device on the mantel and left it running overnight. When I played it back the next morning, most of it was static, until 2:34 a.m. Then, clear as day, he's in the flue. Watching. While inspecting the attic, I found a sealed crawl space directly above the chimney shaft. The access door had been nailed shut from the inside, which made no sense. I pried it open. Inside, old photographs, scraps of burned paper, and something else, finger bones. Small, like a child's. Each had been bundled in cloth and carefully placed around the perimeter of the shaft. There was also a notebook. Its pages were water damaged, but the words inside chilled me more than the bones. I sealed him in. I had no choice. She screamed for days. I couldn't take it. Now he taps. He whispers. I don't look anymore. If I look, he moves. Milash. That night, I dreamed of smoke. I was back in the house. Only the walls were scorched black, the ceiling crumbling. Flames licked the door frames, but never touched me. In the dream, I stood in front of the fireplace, and something climbed down. Its hands were long and blistered. Skin flaked off in sheets. Its face was a pale blur. No eyes, just holes where the eyes should be. It said only one word, Colburn. My name. I woke up screaming. The fireplace was open. The scratching hasn't stopped. It's louder now. Closer. The hands come more frequently. The dreams are turning real. I think Leonard didn't die from the fire. I think he let something in, and I'm starting to believe I inherited more than just the house. I used to believe in logic, cause and effect, noise and source, shadows and light. But that belief was the first thing the house took from me. After that night, the dream, the open fireplace, the face without eyes, I couldn't bring myself to sleep in the bedroom. I dragged my mattress into the den, as far from the chimney shaft as possible. Still, the cold followed. No matter how many blankets I used, no matter how many times I turned up the heat, the air in the house carried a chill that pressed in from the walls like wet breath. It wasn't winter anymore. It was early fall, crisp, sometimes warm, but not inside the house. Inside, it always felt like a crypt. I called a contractor to look at the ductwork. He checked the attic, the crawl spaces, even the base of the chimney. "There's nothing here, man," he said. "No leaks. No animals. But it's cold as hell, I'll give you that." Before he left, he added one thing, almost as an afterthought. "You should. Maybe get a priest or something." Just saying. He said half joking, but not fully. The next development came quietly. I woke up one night to a noise I hadn't heard before. It wasn't scratching this time. Not the usual scritch-scritch thump I'd grown used to. This was a voice. but not whispering. Humming. Low, tuneless. Like a child trying to remember a lullaby. It echoed from inside the chimney shaft. I rose, slowly. The humming stopped. I crept toward the living room, drawn in by the stillness, the way you're drawn toward the scene of a car accident. You don't want to see it, but something in your gut demands that you do. The iron grate covering the fireplace was open again. I hadn't touched it. And on the ash stone floor beneath the opening, something had arranged 3 small objects: a thimble, a matchbox, and a tooth. I stared at them for a long time. Then I backed away, left the room, and locked the door behind me. I didn't sleep again that night. I returned to Leonard's old journal the next morning. Most of it was unreadable, damaged by water, smoke, maybe mold. But I noticed a series of phrases repeated in several entries, almost like a chant. The man behind the soot. He reaches when you dream. Don't leave gifts. Don't respond. Don't stare. You want to host. Another note, in a shaking hand. The girl tried to feed him sugar cubes. Now she lives in the walls. The house sat on a stretch of overgrown land with woods creeping up behind it, a crumbling fence barely visible through the thickets. I rarely ventured outside, but on a particularly foggy morning, I saw her. A woman, standing at the edge of the tree line, barely visible through the mist. She didn't move, just stood there. She wore a white dress, gray with age. Her face was turned toward the house. I watched her for 20 minutes from the upstairs window. She didn't shift an inch. And then, just as I blinked, she was gone. I couldn't stop thinking about the missing girl. Madeline. The clippings had been sparse, but I managed to find a librarian willing to dig deeper. She gave me a scanned police report from the initial investigation. It included a sketch drawn by Madeline's mother, based on what Madeline had supposedly seen the day before she vanished. A man, upside down, peering out of the old chimney flue in the woods near Cradle Hill. A man with long, shivering fingers. I felt sick. Then I realized the drawing looked exactly like the thing I'd seen in the dream. The thing I'd seen reach down the shaft. Except she drew it 34 years ago. Things escalated. I woke to find all the windows open, though I had locked and latched them. My kitchen knives, yes, every one, were found stabbed into the drywall, arranged in a perfect spiral above the dining table. I had bruises on my wrists and ankles I couldn't explain. The worst was when I found the photograph, tucked inside Leonard's notebook. It was old and faded, likely taken with a Polaroid camera. It showed the living room, same as now, but in the photo, there was someone sitting in the fireplace. Naked, pale, smiling. But they weren't facing out. They were facing inward, like they were watching something deeper in the shaft. Their fingers were splayed on the stone, and their spine was bent backwards, unnaturally arched. I dropped the photo. On the back, in scrawled pencil, "He comes for those who open the shaft." I returned to the attic again, flashlight in hand, and re-examined the floorboards around the chimney shaft. I found a trapdoor. The wood was warped and old, but I pried it open and descended a short, steep ladder into a chamber I hadn't known existed. At the bottom, a circular stone room, like a cistern or cellar, but dry. It was silent and freezing. In the center stood a crude altar made of bricks. Around it were blackened handprints on every wall. Hundreds of them, some large, some small, and in one corner, a chair. Bound to it with wire was a skeleton, still partially mummified, clothes clinging to bone. The arms were twisted behind its back. The jaw had been broken open. A burned journal page sat pinned to the wall. He must be bound. He must be cold. He hates the warm. He wants the world. If he leaves the shaft, there is no end. I should have left. I should have burned the house to the ground. Instead, I stayed. I kept documenting, kept listening, and then I did the one thing Leonard said not to do. I looked. I looked up the chimney shaft with a flashlight, desperate to see, desperate to understand. The beam cut through the darkness and landed on a face. It was upside down, hovering, suspended somehow halfway up the shaft, its mouth open in a frozen scream, lips peeled back, eyes sewn shut with wire. The skin had been flayed from the neck down, and it twitched. I dropped the flashlight. The last thing I saw before darkness swallowed the view was the fingers crawling down the wall, not falling, not grasping, crawling, as if the brick welcomed them. I'm writing this as fast as I can. The air is gone still. My breath fogs in front of my mouth. And just now, I heard the iron grate shift behind me. He's out. He's in the house. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember waking up. The smell of smoke filled my nose. Bitter, acrid. My lungs burned. I shot upright, heart hammering in my chest, expecting to see fire, glowing embers, something consuming the room. There was nothing, just stillness. But the smoke lingered, hanging in the air like fog that refused to move. It had no source, no color, and worst of all, no heat. It was cold, bitterly cold, like breathing in winter water. I opened the windows. I turned on every light, but still it crept along the floor, curling up the corners of the walls, whispering around the door frames. I think it was trying to learn the house. Later that day, I noticed a door. I had walked past that hallway hundreds of times, but I swear to you, it had never been there before. It was small, barely taller than my waist. A wooden hatch built into the paneling between the kitchen and the stairwell, as though made for a child or a crouching figure. No handle, just a slit and a rusted keyhole. The frame around it looked older than the rest of the house. The wood was blackened, cracked, ashen. I felt a terrible instinct in my gut. A cold, deep part of my brain whispered, "Don't open it." But some other part of me, a buried, curious voice, replied, "You already have." I began setting up my phone at night to record audio while I slept. At first, I heard the usual creaking, wind, maybe a door closing. Then, night 4, something else. 1:13 a.m. The sound of soft footsteps, bare, deliberate. 1:17 a.m. A click. My bedroom door opening. 1:18 a.m. A voice. My voice. Only. I was asleep. I listened to it over and over. The voice whispered 4 words. I said, "Let me in." Then nothing. Dead silence. Until 3:09 a.m. The audio picked up what sounded like nails scratching wood coming from the chimney shaft. No animal sounds. Just slow, dragging claws. I didn't sleep after that. They started appearing in the floorboards. Tiny grooves. First beneath the windowsill, then beside my bed, then on the ceiling above my headboard, as though someone had been crawling upside down, clutching the beams within human limbs. I painted over them. The next morning, they came back deeper, and with them, 3 words carved into the bedroom door. Colder, colder, colder. She appeared once. I was brushing my teeth, staring down into the sink, when I looked up and there she was. Behind me, in the mirror, her face was wrong, blurred at the edges, like a photo that's been copied too many times. Her mouth hung slack, and her eyes were hollow, smeared shadows leaking smoke. Her arms stretched toward me, too long, her fingertips scraping the frame of the mirror from inside. I turned. No one there. While I looked back, the mirror had cracked diagonally across her face. I found the letters beneath a loose floorboard in the attic. Old paper, cursive handwriting, dated 1953. They were written by a boy, Elias Byrne, to his mother. He couldn't have been older than 12. His last note read, "Mama, I keep seeing the man in the shaft again. He talks to me with no mouth. I gave him my tooth like he said. Now he wants me to go with him down the tunnel. He says it's warmer in the cold." That's what he said. It's warmer in the cold. I felt sick reading that. I later checked public records. Elias Byrne went missing in 1953. Presumed dead. Never found. I couldn't stop thinking about the small door, the one that hadn't been there before. That night, I approached it with a crowbar. The wood was rotted through and gave way quickly. Behind it, a narrow tunnel sloped downward, brick-lined, old. The smell hit me instantly. Mold, decay, smoke. I should have walked away. I didn't. I crawled inside. The tunnel was tight. I dragged myself forward with my elbows, phone light barely cutting the gloom. After maybe 10 feet, the brick gave way to stone, and then I saw the scratch marks. Both sides of the tunnel were raked with clawed hands, some small, some disturbingly large, scraping toward the exit, desperate, trying to get out. Then I heard it, breathing, shallow, behind me. I turned and looked back, and there were hands, reaching in from the tunnel's mouth, not crawling toward me, just pressing gently, as if feeling the air. They were shivering. After the tunnel, I lost a day. I remember crawling out. I remember collapsing on the living room floor, gasping. I remember the feeling of frost on my skin, even though the house was warm. Then nothing. When I came to, it was evening. My phone was dead, but the Polaroid camera, Leonard's old one, was lying on the floor. There was a new picture. It showed me, asleep in bed, with someone standing beside me. The figure was facing the chimney, not me, just watching it, as though waiting. I looked closely at the photo. His fingers were spread on the wall, and they were shivering. It started 2 nights ago. A voice, very faint, coming through the fireplace, even when it wasn't lit. I sat there for hours, frozen, listening to it whisper the same sentence again and again. I never left the shaft. I never left the shaft. I never left the shaft. Until one night. It changed. "I'm under your bed." I didn't check. I couldn't. Instead, I ran out of the house, barefoot, into the woods behind the property. I stayed there until dawn. I wasn't alone out there, but whatever was in the woods didn't follow me. It didn't need to, because it already had my house. I returned to the attic, tore through Leonard's journals, his clippings, everything I had missed. There was one page I hadn't seen before. He had drawn a map of the chimney shaft, how it didn't just go up but down, much farther than structurally possible. Beneath the foundation, beneath the frost line, beneath everything. He wrote one sentence at the bottom. "It's not a chimney. It's a throat." I used to believe the chimney was just an architectural feature, an old design choice, a vent for warmth. I know better now. It's not a chimney. It's a mouth, and I've been sleeping inside its throat. It took me weeks to understand this. I blamed the drafts. I blamed insulation. I even replaced the vents. But the cold kept returning, not from the windows or doors, but from the center of the house. From a chimney. It didn't feel like wind. It felt like breath. I would stand in the middle of the living room at 3:17 a.m., the coldest hour of the night, and feel it, something exhaling up through the bricks, past the soot, through the throat of the house, and out the open mouth of the chimney. I placed a thermometer next to the grate. It dropped to -2 degrees Celsius, even though the rest of the house was warm. The cold was never environmental. It was intentional. On October 13th, I found something new. The iron grate covering the fireplace had been pushed outward, slightly ajar, again like someone had crawled out. But it was what was written on the iron that chilled me most. 3 long scratches across the bottom, shallow but unmistakable. They weren't random, not claw marks. They formed a symbol, a circle with 2 lines crossed through it, like a slashed eye. I flipped through Leonard's notes and found the symbol in a single margin of his old journal, barely legible beside it. Do not show your back to him. I didn't understand it then, but I would soon. It started to snow. Not real snow. There was no moisture, no flurries, no weather. But I began to smell it. That sharp, unmistakable scent of snowfall. Iron, static stillness. The way it smells when you're alone in the woods in January. I could taste it on my tongue. It filled the air in the house, like something unholy was about to arrive. One night, I found actual frost on the inside of the kitchen window. It had formed in a perfect pattern, concentric rings spreading outward from the center, like a pupil. The house was watching me. I've lived here for almost 4 months now. I know every creak in the floor, every warped plank, every inch of the walls. So when I woke up one morning to find a door where there hadn't been one before, I didn't try to rationalize. It was in the hallway near the laundry room. Heavy oak, brass knob, no frame, just embedded in the wall, as though it had always been there. I tried opening it. Locked. But later that night, I passed the hallway again. And the door was open. Inside, total darkness. No floor, no room, just a vertical shaft lined with hands, hundreds of them, crawling slowly along the walls, palms open, fingers twitching as though waiting for someone to fall inside. The sound they made wasn't a whisper. It was a shiver. I didn't know what else to do. Father Jensen arrived on October 23rd. Older man, thin, worn around the eyes. I didn't explain everything, just that something was wrong with the house. He walked through it once, then asked me a question I didn't expect. Has anyone died here since you moved in? I told him no. He nodded, but didn't look relieved. He looked almost disappointed. That means it's still choosing. He said a short prayer, sprinkled holy water around the chimney. The fireplace growled. That's the only way I can describe it. Like a low, ancient growl rising from deep beneath the floor. It rattled the grate. The crucifix around Father Jensen's neck began to tremble. He left without saying goodbye. I started hearing it 2 nights later. Not humming, not scratching, but speaking. Only one word. Over and over. Colder. I couldn't tell if it was male or female. It was just empty, like the word had been spoken for centuries, passed from tongue to tongue until it had no owner. Every night at exactly 3:17 a.m., the voice would begin. Every night it grew louder. By the 5th night, it wasn't just coming from a shaft. It was coming from beneath my bed. Out of desperation, I opened the hatch beneath the house. The crawl space had always been too small for me to get into, but I didn't care anymore. I needed answers. I crawled on my stomach through the dust and spider webs. It was pitch black. The air smelled like rust and rot. At the far end, beneath the furnace, I found a hole. A vertical shaft that dropped into the earth, bricks around the edge, just like the chimney, but descending deeper than any foundation should go. I drop a rock down. I never heard it hit the bottom, but I did hear something else. Breathing. And then, a whisper. Let me up. My hands are cold. That same night, I passed a mirror in the hallway. I wasn't looking at it, but I saw movement, my own reflection. Except it blinked and I didn't. I froze. My reflection slowly lifted its hand and pressed its palm against the glass. Its fingers were longer than mine. Its skin was blue. It stared back at me with dead, sunken eyes, then mouthed 3 words, "He's beneath you." I smashed the mirror. There was no blood, just soot leaking from the cracks. That's what I realized the next morning. I woke to find the living room cold, not chilly, not drafty, but freezing. Frost covered the TV screen. My breath fogged instantly. The iron grate was gone. Not opened. Gone. As if it had never existed. The bricks around the fireplace were melted, warped inward, forming the shape of a wide, gaping grin. And in the center of the floor, where the grate had been, were footprints. Wet, barefoot, black with ash, leading away from the hearth, toward the stairs. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed in the kitchen with every light on. And I swear to you, just before dawn, I saw someone watching me from the top of the staircase. It was burned into my skin. A brand. I didn't know how it got there. I simply woke up with it on my shoulder. A spiral, etched into the flesh, red and raw. It pulsed when I got near the chimney. Leonard had drawn it once in his notes. Beside it, he had written, "The mark of descent." It means he's chosen a path through you. Once marked, you no longer sleep alone. I hear him moving now, not in the chimney, but in the walls. I hear his hands, his fingers scraping slowly across the beams, the nails tapping on old wood. I feel cold breath on my neck when I turn off the lights. I hear my own voice whisper things I never said. Last night, the voice in the shaft said something new. You let me in. Now you go down. There's no normal anymore. The house has changed. And I think, so have I. For the last 5 nights, I've had the same dream. I'm in the living room, but it's not the one I know. Everything's wrong. The furniture is soaked in dark water. The walls pulse like lungs. The chimney is gone, but in its place is a hole, wide, breathing, whispering. I always approach it. I never mean to, but I do. When I lean over the edge, I see myself crawling up toward me, emaciated, eyes hollow, blackened hands stretching for my throat. Just before it reaches me, I wake up choking, my mouth full of ash. Every time, it started subtly. The hallways stretched longer. The stairwell had 3 more steps. The bathroom door led to the linen closet. But then it got worse. On October 31st, I went to sleep in the master bedroom. I woke up on the attic floor, surrounded by soot. No windows, no door behind me, just a brick wall of the chimney shaft directly in front of me. There were fingerprints in the soot, fresh, dragged downward. I followed the wall with my hands until I found the ladder. It hadn't been there before. It led downward. I couldn't stop myself, even though my body screamed. Even though every instinct begged me to flee, I climbed down. Each rung was rusted and frozen. My hands bled from the cold metal. After 30 feet, the bricks began to change. They were no longer clean or symmetrical. They bulged outward. They bled sap or tar or something thick and warm. The shaft narrowed. The air smelled like mildew and formaldehyde. I kept going. At the bottom was a chamber. Circular. massive, like the inside of a well. The floor was dirt, but moved like it was breathing. The walls were made of bone and stone, stacked together in uneven, ancient rings. In the center was a fireplace, identical to mine upstairs but inverted. The grate hung from the ceiling, and the hands, hundreds of them, reached up from the dirt, trembling as though trying to grasp something long since lost. One hand, in the middle, was different. It wasn't bone white or ash colored. It was fresh, flesh, veins, fingernails. It looked like mine. It called me by name. For the first time. Daniel. Soft, gentle, deceiving. It rose up from the floor like mist from between the cracks from behind the walls. It was inside my skull and behind my teeth. You've seen what lies beneath. Now let us see what lies inside. My chest constricted, my lungs filled with the scent of burnt hair. I dropped my knees. My skin began to itch, no ripple, like something underneath it wanted out. I clawed my way back up the ladder. When I reached the attic, I vomited black water across the floor. I never owned a Polaroid, but one night, I found a stack of them beneath my pillow. There were 13 in total, each one blurry, each one covered in soot. The first showed me asleep, mouth open, eyes twitching. The second showed me in bed again, but with a second figure crouched beside me. Long limbs, skin like smoke, no face. Each photo after that showed the figure closer, leaning over me, hands extended. In the last photo, I was gone. The bed was empty, but the figure stared straight at the lens. It wasn't just the photos. Soon it was my phone. One night, I found a voicemail from a blocked number. No voice, just a low, vibrating hum, like something alive trapped behind concrete. After 45 seconds, it whispered, "We're learning your shape." Another day, my television flickered on at 3:17 a.m. Usual hour. The screen was pure static, but behind the snow, a face appeared. Not mine, not human. It opened its mouth wide, and from the speaker came the sound of shivering. I smashed the TV with a hammer, but the next night it returned. Same time, same face. On November 7th, the house bled. There's no metaphor, no exaggeration. I came home and found a trail of red footprints leading from the chimney to the kitchen. Each one barefoot, small, deliberate. Inside the hearth, blood was dripping from bricks. I tore apart the wall behind it. There was nothing there, just more wall, more soot, no pipes, no rodents, no explanation. And beneath the blood stain was that same symbol, the spiral. Wider now, pulsing. I didn't know her name until the letter arrived. A yellowed envelope slid beneath my door. Inside, a single page, handwritten in frantic loops. My name is Bethany Calden. I lived there before you. I saw the hands. I heard the breath. I crawled into the shaft. I thought I was dreaming, but it was him. He waits behind warmth and steals your name. He's not fire. He's not smoke. He's what comes after. Bethany had vanished in 1996. The cops assumed suicide, but she didn't die. She went down. I can't sleep anymore. Not because of fear, because I wake up in different rooms. Last night, I fell asleep in the hallway. I woke up in the furnace, lying on ash. No burns, no pain, just soot on my tongue and that smell earth-static old wood. And there's something beneath my skin. I can feel it when I'm still. A presence, a pressure, a warmth that isn't mine. It mimics my heartbeat, but it's just slightly offbeat, like something else is learning to be me. This morning, I found a message on the bathroom mirror, written in frost, smudged by trembling fingers. 6 nights. Then he opens you, and below that, in much smaller letters, don't sleep on the 6th. I have 5 days left. The spiral has now appeared on my chest. I hear the hands every time I close my eyes. I am beginning to understand what Leonard meant when he wrote. Once he crawls up, he doesn't need the chimney anymore. You are the new shaft. There's no normal anymore. The house has changed, and I think, so have I. For the last 5 nights, I've had the same dream. I'm in the living room, but it's not the one I know. Everything's wrong. The furniture is soaked in dark water. The walls pulse like lungs. The chimney is gone, but in its place is a hole, wide, breathing, whispering. I always approach it. I never mean to, but I do. When I lean over the edge, I see myself crawling up toward me, emaciated, eyes hollow, blackened hands stretching for my throat. Just before it reaches me, I wake up choking, my mouth full of ash. Every time, it started subtly. The hallways stretched longer. The stairwell had 3 more steps. The bathroom door led to the linen closet. But then it got worse. On October 31st, I went to sleep in the master bedroom. I woke up on the attic floor, surrounded by soot. No windows, no door behind me, just a brick wall of the chimney shaft directly in front of me. There were fingerprints in the soot, fresh, dragged downward. I followed the wall with my hands until I found the ladder. It hadn't been there before. It led downward. I couldn't stop myself, even though my body screamed. Even though every instinct begged me to flee, I climbed down. Each rung was rusted and frozen. My hands bled from the cold metal. After 30 feet, the bricks began to change. They were no longer clean or symmetrical. They bulged outward. They bled sap or tar or something thick and warm. The shaft narrowed. The air smelled like mildew and formaldehyde. I kept going. At the bottom was a chamber. Circular. Massive. Like the inside of a well. The floor was dirt but moved like it was breathing. The walls were made of bone and stone, stacked together in uneven, ancient rings. In the center was a fireplace, identical to mine upstairs, but inverted. The grate hung from the ceiling, and the hands, hundreds of them, reached up from the dirt, trembling as though trying to grasp something long since lost. One hand, in the middle, was different. It wasn't bone white or ash colored. It was fresh. Flesh. Veins. Fingernails. It looked like mine. It called me by name. For the first time. Daniel. Soft. Gentle. Deceiving. It rose up from the floor like mist from between the cracks from behind the walls. It was inside my skull and behind my teeth. You've seen what lies beneath. Now let us see what lies inside. My chest constricted, my lungs filled with the scent of burnt hair. I dropped to my knees. My skin began to itch, no ripple, like something underneath it wanted out. I clawed my way back up the ladder. When I reached the attic, I vomited black water across the floor. I never owned a Polaroid, but one night I found a stack of them beneath my pillow. There were 13 in total, each one blurry, each one covered in soot. The first showed me asleep, mouth open, eyes twitching. The second showed me in bed again, but with a second figure crouched beside me. Long limbs, skin like smoke, no face. Each photo after that showed the figure closer, leaning over me, hands extended. In the last photo, I was gone. The bed was empty, but the figure stared straight at the lens. It wasn't just the photos. Soon it was my phone. One night, I found a voicemail from a blocked number. No voice, just a low, vibrating hum, like something alive trapped behind concrete. After 45 seconds, it whispered, "We're learning your shape." Another day, my television flickered on at 3:17 a.m., usual hour. The screen was pure static, but behind the snow, a face appeared. Not mine, not human. It opened its mouth wide, and from the speaker came the sound of shivering. I smashed the TV with a hammer, but the next night it returned. Same time, same face. On November 7th, the house bled. There's no metaphor, no exaggeration. I came home and found a trail of red footprints leading from the chimney to the kitchen, each one barefoot, small, deliberate. Inside the hearth, blood was dripping from the bricks. I tore apart the wall behind it. There was nothing there, just more wall, more soot, no pipes, no rodents, no explanation. And beneath the bloodstain was that same symbol, the spiral. Wider now, pulsing. I didn't know her name until the letter arrived. A yellowed envelope slid beneath my door. Inside, a single page, handwritten in frantic loops. My name is Bethany Calden. I lived there before you. I saw the hands. I heard the breath. I crawled into the shaft. I thought I was dreaming, but it was him. He waits behind warmth and steals your name. He's not fire. He's not smoke. He's what comes after. Bethany had vanished in 1996. The cops assumed suicide, but she didn't die. She went down. I can't sleep anymore. Not because of fear, because I wake up in different rooms. Last night, I fell asleep in the hallway. I woke up in the furnace, lying on ash. No burns, no pain. Just sit on my tongue and that smell earth-static old wood. And there's something beneath my skin. I can feel it when I'm still. A presence, a pressure, a warmth that isn't mine. It mimics my heartbeat, but it's just slightly offbeat, like something else is learning to be me. This morning, I found a message on the bathroom mirror, written in frost, smudged by trembling fingers, 6 nights. Then he opens you, and below that, in much smaller letters, don't sleep on the 6th. I have 5 days left. The spiral has now appeared on my chest. I hear the hands every time I close my eyes. I am beginning to understand what Leonard meant when he wrote, "Once he crawls up, he doesn't need the chimney anymore. You are the new shaft." They told me 6 nights, don't sleep on the 6th. They didn't say what would happen if I did. I fell asleep on the 5th night because I was too tired, because the walls were screaming, because the winding stairway had changed again, because the presence inside me was stronger than my will. It started at 3:17 a.m., not 2:20 a.m. or 2:34 a.m., but exactly 3:17 a.m. The moment the cold in the chimney turned into breath. I woke gasping, covered in frost. The flashlight fell from my hand, revealing a ceiling drifting upward like a balloon deflating. The walls bulged. The floor moaned under me. It was waking up, and it had my heartbeat. I don't know how long I was awake before I realized I wasn't inside my house anymore. My room had liquefied around me, boards dissolving into a cavern. I was on my knees in the dirt, blind with cold, hearing fingers. Up, feet, down, fingers. Every direction. Everywhere there was touch. 1,000 calluses pressing into my bones. I screamed, but the ground swallowed the sound. The voice came instead, a choir of tones, multiple registers, singing through my shoulder blades. He said, "Let you in." Now I understood. He had to crawl through me. I tried to stop it. I clawed at my arms, my neck, felt my skin peel away like burnt paper. Under that flesh, there was glass, a mirror-like surface reflecting the tunnel behind me. I saw hands crawling out of me, thin, pale, coated in soot. They curled toward the center of my chest. They formed the spiral, deeper and wider. They found the mark. And then, a voice, louder than all others, punched its way into my skull. You called me up. I feed now. I tried to speak, but my lips wouldn't move. My tongue stuck to the frozen glass in my throat. They reached my heart. They found something there, something living. The spiral glowed red inside my chest. My heartbeat synchronized with the thump of the house. I cried out, but again it was the house that screamed. Memories flickered, childhood, laughter, sleepover camps, a birthday cake. My mother's voice sang sweet dreams, but they were fractured, blacked out, overwritten with cold, thirst, aching emptiness. It wasn't me anymore. It was him. The entity, the man behind the soot, had climbed up through the house and now was standing inside me. And he saw the world through my eyes. They left the mirror intact, centered on my chest. They spread further, carving muscle and bone until I felt nothing but the spiral, wide as a funnel, open to the world. They whispered his final instruction, bring us warmth. Their face emerged, a pale blur wearing my flesh like a mask, leaned forward and kissed me from the inside. I don't remember falling. I remember rising, up the shaft, carried on a tide of breath and frost, up through the cigarette-ashed wood and warping picture frames, up past the altered staircases, flickering lights, mirrors that bled. I came out of the open grate in the living room. The chimney vented through me. There was no grate left, no vent, only my mouth, shaped by stone and soot. Now, writing this, I realize I'm no longer the man who moved in. I am a conduit. I open at night. I breathe at 3:17 a.m. I whisper through walls. I never left the shaft. I drag hands across the floorboards. I leave fingerprints in soot. I open secret doors. I collect what the house misses, heat, breath, life. Every 6 nights I serve, and on the 7th I sleep. Or I think I sleep. They are hungry, hungry for warmth and life. If you're reading this, you're next. Because the spiral marks you too. It means the throat is open. And it's calling. This is Ryan Colburn, The Final Frame. I'm a chimney now.